Hey yo, Neil. Hey, what's up? I got you. Got you, man. R.I.P. Grammy. Free my brother. It's free till it's backwards.
All right, welcome to On the Road with RSG at the Maui Invitational. We're obviously at the end of this thing, and I have a special guest with me today, and just happy to have one of our premier sponsors, Bowman Medical Group, in my match, but our lead person from Bowman Medical Group, PJ. I don't even know what you call. Do you call yourself Chief Medical Officer? What do you call yourself?
I'm a COO, CEO, CFO. So I wear all the hats. I have great staff. I have great people working with me. I have an awesome practice manager, Lydia. Give her a shout out. So I've been able to delegate a lot of the responsibilities, but I do wear all those hats.
So folks who have been following us here on this Maui journey know that Bowman Medical Group has been with us from the beginning. Dr. Bowman has been with us. I call him PJ because we talking sports, and we got to go to his court name. See, people on the court, whether they in LA, whether they somewhere else, they know him in a different way. Now, he's going to drop a lot of knowledge on our mental health and self care side. We'll talk about the intersection between that and sport, but don't get it twisted. This is one of the most competitive athletes I've ever been around, whether it's football. I will say this story. My first time playing baseball, I faced PJ. We were young, I think maybe fifth grade. And I had never, I've just learned to play the game. And he was on the mound. And the first time I've ever seen a curveball. And I jumped out of the box, strike. This cat is competitive in everything. That was my first encounter before I knew we were going to be on this journey together. He was on the mound and I was at the plate. I definitely didn't carry the skills my older brother carried at the plate. I had to go to the basketball, football route. But brother, it's good to be here with you.
Likewise,
for those
likewise.
for those who don't know like your story in terms of your journey to getting where you are today, I just think it's an amazing story about how you get here. Having a practice in LA, in a space where you often don't see folks, who look like you doing this, at least in a lot of our spaces. I've always known that and been exposed, but you have really carved out an important place, helping a lot of good folk. Talk a little bit about your journey, both as a student athlete, how you got to the spot to really be able to launch Bowman Medical Group.
So it's a pleasure to be here, Devon, and I appreciate you bringing me back on. And it's been a journey, and I have to say, I've been blessed, and I have a lot of gratitude for where I'm at right now in my life and in my career. But certainly, at some level, it felt like a journey of challenge and also resilience and also overcoming adversities. And Devon, you and I, we met in junior high school, and maybe even a little earlier than that. But we love sports, and we'd always, as well as cracking jokes and having fun and those kinds of things. And so from Ann Arbor, Michigan, I was a good student. Played both football and basketball. Football probably was my love, was the sport, that I felt like I maybe even was the best in. A lot of people have hoop dreams. I think I have gridiron dreams.
That's right.
I still wonder what it would be like if I, had played football. But, being a athlete and also a student, taught me a lot of really important things. And at Pioneer High School, one of the things it taught me, going into my senior year, as a quarterback for a state championship football team that Devon was a part of as a junior. And I missed out on that year because I moved to Champaign, Illinois, my junior year. So I come back and I'm ready to, repeat. And on the first game of the season against East Lansing, I fractured my patella. Starting quarterback, it's the only team that beat Pioneer the year before, and we were winning. And so I think that's one of the pivotal things for me that happened in my life. As I was laying on that field and I couldn't move my knee, and the team doctor told me I was going to need surgery, and football season is over. told me I wasn't going to play basketball, and it was my senior year. So to me, that's an important part of
Ooh.
this. And I basically had to kind of get up and move forward in life one way or another. So it really helped me mature and also think about, my academics. I'm really saying nothing's promised, nothing's guaranteed.
Mm.
Really looking at, not so much the future, but the present,
Yeah.
and forget the past at that point, because at some level I have to do the best that I can right now. So that was really a resilient story. And one of the interesting things about my recovery that year, the team doctor, Dr. Peterson, love that man. He told me that, I can come back and play basketball if I worked really, really hard.
Mm.
Okay, he was the only doctor that said if you work really, really hard, maybe you can come back and play basketball. So I took that to heart, worked with him, and he showed me pictures of the surgery. He showed me all the anatomy. He showed me what muscles I was developing. He was an orthopedic surgeon, and actually, I made it back for 9 games. Um, Averaged 25 points a game with no 3-point line.
With no 3-point line. Yep.
No
All
3-point
buckets.
line, shooting jumpers because I was slow and with a broken knee. But the point of that story is he helped me so much, it made me want to help other people
Mm.
who might have challenges, especially medical challenges.
Mm.
And that's when it really consolidated for me that I wanted to be a doctor.
Mm.
So I'm not even sure I shared that with you. That
Wow.
interaction with him, he was really hands-on. He was volunteering his time at the high school.
Wow. That's right.
Right, actually. So that was set me in kind of a different frame of mind when I went to college. But all the scholarship offers dried up, so I went to junior college, and in Champaign, Illinois, was fortunate enough to rehab, be able to come back and play really good football. I'm sorry, really good basketball. I do got gridiron
Yeah,
dreams,
you got that gridiron. Yeah, even our locker room was so quiet when you got hurt.
man.
That was the saddest locker room I've ever been a part of after a victory.
Yeah, it
We
was.
we were all mourning. But yeah,
It
so I
was. Yeah, it
understand
was.
why you do that.
I mean, one of those things, and your life kind of
Yeah.
just like one of the most
Yeah.
disappointing things that can happen. So, went on to play at Parkland College, and became a All American, and with the 3-point line. Now, lucky for me, that was the first year or two
You
of
need to
3-point
thank
line.
Bill Napton, head coach at Beloit College, my alma
Hey,
mater, for you being able to shoot that 3-point line. He was the deciding vote. So I
that
will
was
let you.
it. That
That's the
was it.
connection.
And I think changed the game.
Yeah.
Steph Curry, everybody needs to thank him at some level, right?
They all need to
Because
send him Napton flowers. He's still down there in Florida,
hey,
probably golfing.
that's it. That's it. Ray Allen. It just changed. It changed basketball. So actually, basketball opened up for me. I developed outside shooting as really the strength of my game, and that's when Illinois came knocking on my door. Illinois was loaded with talent. Marcus
Hmm.
Liberty, Nick Anderson, Kendall Gill, Steve Bardo. I mean, they had NBA players, but they were not good outside shooters.
Nope.
And Henson recruited me and said, "Hey, I think you can help the team." And I thought, this would be a wonderful opportunity for me to kind of play Big Ten basketball, not really worry about anything beyond that, and get really good grades, because at that point I really wanted to be a doctor, and that was why I was going to Illinois to finish up and go to medical school. So, after playing at Illinois and having wonderful experience playing in the Final Four, as you know, being able to just know what it's like to perform at that high level.
Hmm.
Going into Wisconsin, I remember you came to a
Yeah.
game.
Yes.
We were on the road and playing these hostile environments, and then I have to go back and take my French exam.
Yep.
2 days later, or take my biology exam, and it really taught me, a lot of discipline and really how to focus.
Yeah.
And so after that, going to
Now,
Michigan.
before you go to that Michigan thing, I'm not going to let you get over it. You also gave B.J. Armstrong, y'all Bulls fans. He also gave B.J. Armstrong 30 in Iowa City. So
Yeah,
you
yeah,
gave B.J. 30 in Iowa. But I'm not going to let you get past that story because he gave him
yeah.
30. You Bulls fans, he gave him 30 in Iowa City.
So what for some reason I like playing on the road. We play some of these road teams, and Iowa City, man, you couldn't even hear yourself talk.
Yes.
You can hear your teammates. It's one of those great Big Ten venues. Yeah, so BJ, excellent player. He's from Michigan,
Yeah.
so I kind of remember that, brother Rice. And so I'm like, all right, I'm from Michigan too, so we're gonna get down tonight. So that was yeah, one of my better games. And I just took all that valuable experience, went to Michigan for grad school. I have a master's degree in public health. Then went out of medical school and decided that I wanted to be a psychiatrist, which has been sort of a great decision for me moving forward, because I think psychiatry and mental health, neuroscience, all these types of things are sort of like really the field of the future, and it's really the field of the present. You think
Mm,
about what the needs are out there and some of the challenges that people face that are unmet. A lot of
hmm
the unmet needs that we have in society, a lot of those things have to do with with mental health. So it's been a great journey coming to LA to work at UCLA doing a fellowship, not knowing anybody,
mm,
and coming to LA thinking about I'll be here for a couple years. And I'll probably end up back in the Midwest, and also recognizing I have an entrepreneurial side to me.
yeah.
Starting a private practice and thinking about how would I want to offer medical services.
Mm,
How would I want to relate to patients? What kind of structure would I like to put in place for offering kind of really high quality care, and just getting into developing that from scratch, and doing that slowly but gradually and growing over, really it's been 20 years now, for the last 20 years.
yeah.
Fortunate enough to have a group, other psychiatrists, therapists, staff, that we work together, and we really take pride in what we do as far as top notch mental health care in Los Angeles.
Well, this is great context because nowhere in your training did you expect that you would have to try to figure out as an entrepreneur, but also as a psychiatrist, navigate a pandemic. And I remember I had been traveling on a project. I was working on a project in Syracuse and came back. Was preparing to go to the Big Ten tournament. My niece played at Indiana. I was preparing to go watch them play, and the world just started shutting down. I remember watching the game Utah where Gobert was at least diagnosed with COVID, and they began to shut this world of sports began to shut down, and all of a sudden you start to understand the impact. You saw high school student athletes losing their final season where they just shut it down. You saw people who had prepared for years for this moment to be able to play. I remember we covered the Maui Invitational. I mean, you had Obi Toppin and Dayton was on a rise, and watching them in person, and just we were preparing to watch. We thought they were going to do work in the tournament, and then to have it shut down. And just you could tell the psychological impact, and I think that's why it's important about your story, even in the senior year playing football, that when you have that kind of traumatic experience where just the world shuts down, things that you've already tried to prepare yourself for, I mean, that could be debilitating. And you said you noticed, I mean, y'all obviously you noticed a rise in folks you were going to, but how, first of all, like when the pandemic happened, and as an entrepreneur, as someone who is had to be accessible to people rely on you, right? They rely. What was that like during that moment when things just started shutting down?
Yeah, it was wild. Some of my friends who we annually go somewhere, a destination to watch March Madness,
Yeah.
and we had chosen South Florida that particular year
Mm,
to meet up.
yeah.
And one by one, everyone started dropping out. I don't think I can go. My wife won't let me. Uh, and we didn't know what was going on. And I think maybe I was one of maybe two people, like the last man standing. Like, okay, should we go or should we not go? And it just felt like surreal that every day we got more information, because we didn't know very much at that point. So we obviously didn't go and make that trip. And then I started to think about, wow, I've never seen a situation where the NCAA tournament is canceled. I mean, I thought outside of a war or some major, calamity, some natural disasters, like what would ever cause that to happen? And then everything one by one started to shift and change, including the way that I work.
Mm,
So that was, even more than 18 months ago.
Yeah.
And I had to pivot. I had to pivot to telehealth. So telemedicine, working with clients over video, right? Or either, sometimes the phone can work sometimes, but basically not in person. And I'm trained to work with people in person. It's emphasized, that it's a priority to see people in person. And so we had to kind of figure it out. And we were able to make that pivot to the extent now that I haven't seen, outside of a handful of cases, anyone in person for 18 plus months, to the extent that it shifted how I even think about access to mental health care in a positive way. I feel like for some people, getting to a doctor in and of itself can be a barrier, right? If we're talking about access to care. So I think the barrier is lower, so access is greater because you can just have some kind of internet connection and some software platform impressive, and you can meet with Dr. Bowman or Dr. Bobak, or you can meet with a doctor now. So to me, that's great. It required a pandemic for that to happen now. The other issue is the isolation factor.
Yes.
That occurred early in the pandemic. So not just the losses of what the plans were that had to be canceled or postponed, but also now the isolation factor, where it's safer at home.
Yeah.
Those were the signs: safer at home.
Yeah.
And you look around in your nuclear family and you see, well, this is it. And that isolation effect started to really affect people in a somewhat negative way. So anxiety, depression. There was a dramatic rise in these type of issues with people. So I think there are people, Devon, who are on the fence that maybe they would see a mental health professional, maybe not, but it just kind of tipped the scale.
Yeah.
And those are the folks that started to enter care that may not have in the past.
Yeah.
And then the other piece that I noticed is when you're FaceTiming your family or you're trying to talk to them on the phone or friends, and they can't see you to offer that kind of support that they normally would offer you. Sometimes your family says, hey, this might be above my pay grade.
Yep.
Sometimes your family and friends might say, hey, I love you, but I'm not I'm not a therapist, and it looks like you're struggling.
Yep.
So I think people started to get more encouragement to actually reach out to a mental health professional by loved ones and people they care about. So in a way, it started to reduce the stigma, because if I can't be there for you, I can't jump on the plane and come and be there for you for a week and support you. I can only do so much. And so I feel like there are a lot of these interesting social dynamics that started to influence the perceived stigma on receiving mental health care. And so I think, it's changed a lot over the last 18 months. So the stigma is lower. People are actually utilizing care more. And the barriers that were there before are different, right? They're lessened. So in terms of like the pace, we're busier than we ever have been, and happy to be able to be there for people.
Well, you're on the road with RSG, Maui Invitational. I'm actually in Oahu, so I had to get a little bit of love, even though the Invitational was in Vegas. I'm here, so you might hear a rooster or two back in the background, but that's just how we get down.
I heard that.
That's how we get down. We try to bring y'all all into it, because we will be back on the islands next year for the Maui. So I thought it would be good to give people. You can see that blue in the background. That's real. That's not that. I'm not using any type of in these day and age. You can do the backdrop. You can do all that stuff. This is real roosters. Everything else. This is RSG. This is how we get down. I'm here with Dr. Phillip Bowman. PJ is he's my guy. Bowman Medical Group, who has been with us on the journey. We're just talking about how you enter pandemic life, and obviously had an impact on sport, and in a number of ways. We shut down sports, and then sports started to reopen. There was just pressure to kind of get moving ahead, but it did the pandemic kind of pulled the scab off the Band-Aid off a long scab in terms of when we talk about social unrest and a whole bunch of stuff happening that clearly athletes were engaged in, whether it were high school. I mean, you could tell the impact on athletes, and with all the other pressure that they're having, as well as missing potential eligibility opportunities. The NCAA corrected that, but we started to kind of re-enter, and vaccinations coming on board, and it unleashed a whole other historical trauma. Where particularly black and brown communities and trust around medicine. You're trained in your area. You come from a family of folks. Your brother is the dean of the School of Public Health at Michigan, very well knowledgeable. One of the lead scientists on the Moderna vaccine, African American scientists leading that group. Even with all that, we see the hesitancy. We see Kyrie. We see a lot of misinformation. We see a lot of stuff going on. Just this kind of trust and this trauma around what's going forward in a society that has been vaccinated on a regular basis. People got mumps. That you get hurt as an athlete. Somebody gives you something, you just take it. What have you been just watching as you've been watching this unfold in this public space around athletics and vaccinations? Aaron Rodgers saying I'm immunized, like all of this distrust around this, given your profession and your background and your knowledge of the science. How do you account for that? And what's the way in which we have to start to build a better coalition around how we get people to understand what's real and what's not?
It's complex, and it's not anything that I think we're going to really resolve in the short run, but we need to work on it, because if anything, this taught us, we do have issues in trying to understand what's best for us as individuals, communities, and then at a societal level. And with sports, there was a ton of structure set up, and that structure, that infrastructure was just dismantled, because if you can't, go to an arena, if you can't be around other people, if you can't practice, then, you can't do sports. So it was really interesting how quickly sports was just dismantled. It was gone. And how that structural piece is can quickly go away. Now, the other piece is for individuals who play sports, it's also interesting how social sports are.
Yes.
Because the pandemic has really attacks the social structure.
Yes.
Okay. How we function, not just schools, families, sports. So sports is a highly social context related activity. And that means if you can't, what they say, you got to stay 6 feet away.
Yes.
Then you can't do sports for the most part, right? You can't even shoot billiards or much less play basketball or football if you got to be 6 feet apart. You can't do poker. I don't care what kind of sport it is. There's this social connection that's related to sports. That's why sports, it has such a profound impact on bringing people together, influencing how we think, influencing kind of how we experience life, actually. So to me, it's the social context and the infrastructure was totally dismantled. And I think it gave people a lot of pause and had this interesting opportunity to give people time to think about what am I going to do as an individual to try to help us get back to something that resembles what we had before, but actually do it with a little bit of gratitude, like not taking it for granted that we have this social, contextual, structural aspect of our life and our experiences, that we call sports. So I think people have been who enjoy sports and sports is a part of their lives, have been working gradually, slowly, doing what they can to try to get it back. And so I think that's a perspective on it as a group. I think that's most people are not interested in holding back the recovery as far as sports are concerned. When you look at an individual, though, who has a perspective that sports is not more important than me, sports is not more important than my own sense of autonomy. Okay. I think there's some level of respect for that. if I was an injured athlete and I was offered steroids to recover faster by someone, and they said, "Look, now you're gonna recover faster. You're gonna make it back for the Super Bowl." Would I do it or would I not? Would I feel bad that I'm letting my teammates down because I'm injured or something came up, or would I take that not knowing exactly what it's going to do to my body? Maybe not exactly what it's going to do to my body 5 years from now. Maybe I wouldn't, right? And I would just say I missed the Super Bowl. It was maybe the epitome of my life, and I might just have to take a pass because of how I look at autonomy for my body and what that means. Now, I think it's one thing to talk about anabolic steroids
Yeah.
versus a vaccine that's been tested and proven to be, safe because of millions of people taking it. FDA cleared and all of the other safety measures that have been put into play. So I think the juxtaposition there is, yes, autonomy is important, and I might have to pass on some opportunities. I might have to abstain
Yep.
from some opportunities if I have to put something in my body that I'm not sure about because I don't know exactly what's going to do. I don't have the information. But when the information is available, when the information is clear, when the information is vetted at the highest level, then you have to start wondering what's the miscommunication, or is there a miscommunication,
That's right. That's right. That's right.
right?
Yes.
So if you're Kyrie Irving or you're Aaron Rodgers, I don't believe you can uh, create a information gap when there is not one.
We doing this. We doing this, real sports guys. Let's call it what it is. Right.
Okay, right? There's no information gap. Now, you still have autonomy, and there can be other barriers.
Yep.
So you mentioned, potentially one is trust. Who do I trust? Do I trust the government?
Yep.
Maybe my bigger issue is I just don't trust external organizations or institutions to impose anything on me, right? And as soon as they tell me I have to do it is when I'm going to actually more likely say no,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because there's a lack of trust, and some of that is historical. There
Yep.
have been experiments in this country that were sanctioned by the federal government. That one of the more famous ones is the Tuskegee experiment, where they wanted to see the influence of syphilis, and they used Black communities, and they withheld medication to see the development of a disease, and people suffered, right? And this because of our history with those kind of unfortunate incidents, you do have some level of mistrust when things happen fast. You have to remember this was what Operation Warp Speed.
Yes.
Okay, so so last time I checked, warp speed is fast, right? And for something like a vaccine to be developed in that time frame and also delivered so that it can now be utilized, a lot of people didn't get a chance to maybe restructure how they think about things. Now, I do think it's contextual. I do think that if you are, if Kyrie Irving's at Duke and they said, "Hey, you need your mumps, measles, rubella, vaccine so you can go play at Duke," I bet he got it,
Yes.
right? Because he's
Yes.
trying to get from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he would have gotten that now, and they would have dictated it. You need to do this, otherwise, Krzyzewski would have said, you can't play against North Carolina, or you can't play for Duke. You can't play on our team. So at this point, if you look at Kyrie Irving's situation, last time I checked, he's very affluent. Last time I checked, he's very wealthy. So when you add that piece to it, um, he has the luxury to say no. He has the space to say no. If he was in his first or second year of his career when this was happening, same person, same vaccine, same pandemic, and he's in the first and second year of his career, first, I'm not sure he would have said no, because the trajectory of that would be would be more significant for him. Now he might disagree, but I think that context, and last time I checked, he already won a ring, so he may have a different reason for why he's saying no beyond his philosophies or his sense of autonomy. I also think that sometimes affluent people do interesting things.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, one of the things, the last part that I learned a lot about this is how you have to mourn differently in this. And you saw this with players. I think about my own experience early in the pandemic. A good friend of mine, Corey Jackson, who actually came to the game when you played at UW with me. And Corey came out when we went out when y'all played at Michigan out in Ann Arbor, hang out. And he passed away and right the pandemic, and so very strict kind of conditions around how they were handling funerals. So you have people who haven't really even had a chance to mourn, and you even you saw a number of players who lost folks, and we're coming out of this pandemic, moving towards kind of endemic kind of scenario where we just gonna have to live in this scenario. But people really haven't had a chance to even truly mourn. Like there is a process around mourning. I realized that, and I was one of the few people who could get over to Milwaukee. I was trying to do the get everything on Zoom. I was nervous. I got all these underlying health conditions, but it was like someone had to be there for my brother. And find myself going down the hallway, getting to Milwaukee, being in there. It was only a few of us. And traditionally we hug, and and it was like I just had to do that. It's just one of those things where you weren't supposed to, but this process of that people haven't really had even a chance to mourn. What kind of advice are you giving people who are coming out of this pandemic? We're kind of opening up, but they still have those scars, and I've heard athletes even talking about just the people they've lost and haven't had a chance to go see, and just in general. But how have you helped people to really think about what do they do when they come out of this, knowing that they haven't had that chance to really have that kind of ritual that you go through when you're honoring somebody who's close to you and is now gone, passed on?
So we have rituals that allow us to process our feelings, and that can be cultural, different religious approaches to that, and it varies, all over the world. So first of all, there is no right way or wrong way.
Yes.
Okay, so that's important, and if the way in which there's a particular tradition that you're accustomed to, you're not able to participate in that exact way, it doesn't mean that you lost your opportunity or you can't do it some other way. So that's the first thing. Like, we're human beings are adaptive, even when it comes to things like mourning. I lost relatives during the pandemic, and I felt bad because I couldn't be there and I couldn't give those hugs. And it's nice to get the social support and the love, because it helps us sort of bounce back, right, and helps us move forward and helps us still have hope for the future. So it's not just even the loss of the individuals, but how to reinstitute that hope for the future, right? And that's what coming together has traditionally been able to help people do. So what my point to people is, we don't live life in a bubble. Bubbles were created, pods were created, but we don't really live emotionally in a bubble. Okay, we don't live emotionally in a pod. Okay, so emotionally, we can transcend bubbles. Emotionally, we can transcend pods. And also, emotionally, we're not structured to any particular time and place ever. So if you want to do something purposeful to honor a loved one or a friend that passed away a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago. You can do it, okay? Because it has a lot, what it really has a lot to do is you're doing it with intent, and you're doing it with a sense of purpose, and you want to connect with your higher sense of self, or your higher power, or the type of energy and emotions that go along with that. So it's never too late, and there are no time constraints. There's tradition and there's structure that we didn't get a chance to participate in, but it doesn't mean we still can't reinstill that hope that we have for the future, because that's really what it comes down to. When we lose people, we have to reinstitute hope for the future. So I think that we have to have some creativity. It's not about Zooming during some service. That's too restrictive, because emotions don't go over Zoom that well. Okay, whatever the bandwidth is for emotions, the internet, I haven't figured that one out yet. Okay, you can only do so much over Zoom. So, but what I think you can do a lot with intent and purpose, and that requires you to think about when and how. And there's a lot of things that you can do now, later, and with whomever you choose, hopefully at some point in time, but do it in a manner that's safe. You know, do it in a manner that is, convenient enough. So I just want to instill in people, you can convert some of these things, and you can pick your spots to do that. So I feel like I have a lot to do still in that, to process my feelings and emotions with what I haven't been able to do yet. With I had two aunts that passed away, and an uncle in the last 18 months. All right, so I already am thinking about the types of things that I want to do to really process my feelings too. I haven't been able to do it yet.
Well, hey man, I want to say this, Dr. Bowman, because I'm going back to the official. I went from PJ back to Dr. Bowman. Well, Dr. Bowman and Bowman Medical Group, please send a shout out to us to Lydia. She's just been amazing in terms of helping us process it. It's just been good to be. We never thought those days when your dad dropped us off, out there at the Boys and Girls Club, hoping it was like survival, hoping we all come back by the end of the day. He said to me one time, he said, I had a feeling you would be able to get back because I knew where you grew up. I didn't know if my two sons was going to make it back. I said, you don't know them that well. They're more of a hustler than I am. But it's good for us to be able to be at this place and you to be doing what you're doing. And just the lives you are able to touch on a day-to-day basis along with your colleagues. And it's just been good to be a partner with us on the road here with RSG and the Maui Invitational. I hope we'll be on this journey together for some time soon, brother. And you keep doing the good work. And we again look forward to getting back to Maui, on the island of Maui at the Lahaina Convention Center, where it's like playing at St. Cecilia's in Detroit. It's tight. It's close. The crowd is on top of you. We looking forward to that. We looking to try and get Dr. Bowman in the house so we can be up close and personal on this. But brother, thank you again for all you do for everyone. And please, if you are looking to try to get support and services, contact the Bowman Medical Group. It's a great community of folks who are looking to just help everyday folks try to make sense of the world that they're living in and move forward. This is Devon Wilson on the road with RSG and Maui Invitational. Congratulations to those Badgers for taking it home. We'll see you on the other side.
Appreciate it. Much love.
Ready for the day the Lord called on me. Them all decisions, man, they all on me. I can't do this way from
Hey yo, Neil. Hey, what's up? I got you.
Got you, man. R.I.P. Grammy. Free my brother.